Okay, so let's get on to the swords. And now swords represent all the conflict, aggressive, and intense energies of the tarot. It doesn't have to be negative, but this is the edgier side of life that comes through in these cards. I don't typically like to see lots of swords coming up when I see my spread, but it is what it is. But it's not all negative, as I said. So, for instance, here we have the Ace of Swords. It's a beginning of some sort, of course, a new beginning, a new point of view. By itself, or certainly next to the World card, it would indicate a pregnancy. It would indicate that a birth is going to occur, that someone's going to have a baby. And then I think the point with the Ace of Swords, as you see, the two colors on the swords, the double side, there's two sides. Not that there isn't two sides to everything. A good example would be like someone who is going to have a baby. Fantastic, expansive, wonderful, great, happy news. But on the flip side of that, you're cemented to the person that fathered the child. There's going to be financial implications. There's going to be implications on your time. There's going to be, parenting and teaching, until, right? So that's the other side. And that's an example of how the Ace of Swords can show up in your life, that it can be really fantastic, but there's a weight and a responsibility that goes to it. All right, the Two of Swords often relates to two things. It could be a relationship you're having and you and your partner are at odds. There's a conflict of some sort. Or whatever's going on in your life, it's a stalemate, of course, but things have sort of stalled in general. That's the second piece. If you see the Two of Swords next to the Sun, as for timing, it talks about, well, soon everything is going to rearrange. So that's a positive omen as well. But that isn't a big deal here. It's going to pass. This too shall pass, right? I hate this card. You can tell my personal feelings come out when describing these cards. This is actually what it is. You're stabbed in the heart. It's usually a love relationship. 90% of the time, it's a love relationship. Otherwise, it could be, a fight with your best friend or someone in your family you've really had it out with. And depending on how many other sword cards are in there, can tell the severity of the schism. And I know when we were talking about death card in Major Arcana, I said it doesn't usually mean death. But the sword cards, many sword cards in relationship to the death card or tower or something else could indicate someone's passing. The Four of Swords is actually a relatively positive card of all the swords cards. The person is lying here, they're basically rejuvenating. And if you think, the four comes right after the three, so maybe you've had a hard time and now you're filling up, you're rejuvenating, you're gathering your wisdom, you're probably keeping to yourself right now, trying to get your wits about you again before you go back out into the world. By the way, the Four of Swords next to the Judgment card is a very positive omen for new chapters that are very expansive and wonderful. So if this comes up in if this were to come up in my spread, for instance, I would say, okay, I need to really digest as much information as I can about what happened so I can fill myself up and be ready to go in to the next phase of my life, not just survive a moment, right? Here we go again with a Five of Swords. Tough moment. Sometimes this is after a fight you've had with someone. I mean, there's a lot of conflict energy here, and there's some bodies. The bodies have been left behind, so to speak. And sometimes there's a lot of indecision here. I mean, scattered energies, fives, they always bring sort of that, what is up? What happened? What's going on? A lot of questions, more questions than answers, basically. So this is a hard card. And if this shows up to the Magician, this probably tells you you've made the wrong decision. The Magician tends to be, it says the right decision, but this one next to the Magician is going to tell you something's amiss here in the choices. And now the Six of Swords, even though sometimes this can signal a breakup in a relationship, it's also, look at the waters. It's much calmer. Things are getting better. There's a sort of more of a peacefulness here. So that means a decision has been made. you're going off in other directions, whether it's the breakup of a relationship, and sometimes it is. This can mean the ending of a relationship, romantic or otherwise. But the decision, you feel right about the decision and you're moving in other directions. This often does signal a trip or a journey. Usually it's a short journey, not necessarily, but this does, like the Knight of Wands, talk about taking a trip. The Seven of Swords, this is a rough card in some ways. It can go two ways. One, it's talking about you may have burdened yourself, or you may have made a bad decision and you're feeling the weight of that decision. Maybe you told a fib, or, and you're kind of looking over your back to see if you're going to get caught. Or maybe you're dealing with someone who's not being completely forthcoming and honest with you. It doesn't have to be criminal, by the way. So it can be, and depending on other cards, it would tell whether the person was really a danger or deceptive. But in a more traditional sense, I think it's really about feeling insecure about our own decisions, or the way someone else is treating us. And in a relationship reading, it really does say that someone is not being fully forthcoming with the other person, either about their feelings or their circumstances. So the person doesn't have all the information. But it is a signal to unburden yourself. It is a signal to, let's take a different approach here. We're collecting too many swords. Let's kind of move away from this energy. The Eight of Swords, this talk in a relationship reading, this will talk about people having a lot of feelings for each other, but having a hard time owning up to them, or, you can't get someone out of your head or whatever. This is also the anxiety card. There's so much anxiety here. And so it doesn't have to be a relationship. It can be related to your job or your money situation or your health. But this talks about a lot of anxiety, and you just cannot see the forest for the trees right now. You're stressed out, plain and simple. The Nine of Swords, sort of one step up from the Eight of Swords, where we're not, the person still has their head in their hand, but there's so much worry going on here. It's like now we've progressed from anxiousness to just plain on worry, and we don't even want to get out of bed. Our head is in our hands. We're probably just, oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh my God, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? We're probably overthinking. And the thing about the Nine of Swords is it usually indicates it was needless. There was nothing to worry about, that the page is going to turn, and what you're worrying about is probably not even going to come to pass. So that's the good news you can say to the person you're reading for. I hate this card. I've had this come up during my life, and it ain't fun. It is not fun at all. So yeah, you've been annihilated. You have been skewered. And this can be relationship, could be job, and paired with other cards, Three of Swords, the Death card, other hard cards. It could indicate a death. It could indicate, just a real sense of being defeated in your life, or just feeling extremely defeated and really upset about whatever the circumstance is. And again, you have to read the other cards to know what that'll be. King of Swords. Okay. To me, this would be like a judge. It can be your father, someone you're in love with, of course, but it's someone who's decisive, who has authority. But this is certainly to represent someone who would be a judge and lay down the law in your life and make you suffer the consequences of your actions. So this is a person who would be brutally honest with you. This is a person who holds no punches, right? Spares no punches. I think when you use the term brutally honest, that pretty much says it all. Tough thing, someone who's relatively aggressive. The Knight of Swords, this person comes in, wants to take charge, takes over, can be a man or a woman, but this is very male energy oriented, comes in, takes charge. It can be positive. It can be the entry of, this could be your new lover coming into your space, but they're just very dominant, and just the way they show up, whatever it is, you find it intoxicating that they're so take charge. The Page of Swords, again, pages are always messages. It could be a young child or a teenager, but more often it's probably some news you don't necessarily want to hear. Not good. I don't want to hear this news. Why are you telling me this news? So in some ways, the news is going to agitate. Okay. The Queen of Swords, of course, will represent a woman in your life. It can represent you. And by the way, that should be said about all court cards. They can also represent the reader or the readee, or the person asking for the reading on some aspects of their personality. But if it is not that person, then it relates to someone in your life with these tendencies. This person is, they have an edge. I mean, if I was to describe astrologically, I'd say this would be an Aries. This would be a Leo or a Sagittarius. This is someone who's got fire. Okay. So it doesn't mean she doesn't have wisdom, but there's an edge to this information as it comes in. And when we say queen or king or knight, these are somewhat general, gender neutral. They don't have to be, but I want you to keep that in mind as you read energy, which is what you're doing. All right. So that's it for the suits.